Welcome back, everyone. I hope you are all doing well, and I'm doing fine too. Once again, I'm here with a brand new story. Today's incident was told to me by a gentleman named Johnny. Without wasting any more time, let me get straight into it. I will present the story exactly the way Johnny shared it with me. Johnny said, "The story I'm about to tell you actually happened to us. As you know, recently there has been a lot of talk about a doll. Some say it's a haunted doll, others say it's a man-eating doll. Whatever the name may be, many call it a possessed doll. Some people truly believe there's something inside it, while others laugh and dismiss all possibilities. It is said that wherever this doll enters, something evil enters too. It reminds me of my childhood. Those of you who had sisters playing with dolls surely know there was always an invisible fear attached to dolls. Not always, but sometimes. At times, it even felt like the doll was staring directly at you. I never really played with dolls myself, but whenever I went to my cousin's house, if there was a doll in the room, I would always feel a strange kind of fear. It felt as if they were lifeless, yet still watching and listening to everything. People's fear of dolls is nothing new. Many movies have been made about it. But the story I'm going to share today is about my own children. At the time, my son Abraham was 7 years old, and my daughter Joseph was 5. The incident was about that same terrifying doll. Without realizing it, I brought the doll into our house myself. But before I go there, let me tell you about a memory from my childhood, though not about a doll, but about a teddy bear. I was 6 years old, and it was my birthday. My mother gifted me a big teddy bear, almost the same size as me. It was so large that I almost considered it alive. I named it Mantu Saheb, which always made me feel as if I had a special friend by my side. Wherever I went, the dining table, study desk, or even my bed at night, Mantu was always there with me. The house we lived in back then was terrifying. Strange incidents often happened there. Even now, I wonder, was the teddy bear possessed, or was the house itself the problem? Anyway, let me tell you exactly what I saw and felt. The first incident happened one night. I was sleeping, and the teddy was lying beside my bed. Suddenly, it felt like someone was gently stroking my head. Along with that, I heard whispers, 2 or 3 people talking in very low voices. At first, half asleep, I didn't pay much attention. But as the whispers grew clearer, I suddenly woke up. The room was pitch dark. I quickly turned on the light. Everything was normal. The teddy was in its place. I convinced myself it must have been a dream and went back to sleep. The next day, after school, I was playing with Mantu again. When my mom called me for lunch, I left the teddy on the dining table and went to wash my hands. But when I came back, I saw something strange. My plate wasn't empty, but it looked like someone had eaten a little bit of my food. There were curry stains on the plate and even on the table. Shocked, I looked at Mantu and saw curry stains on its hand. I was too young to understand. For a moment, I thought maybe the teddy had eaten my food, but then I realized, how could a teddy bear eat? Surely it was that invisible presence we sometimes felt in the house. My mother also noticed the stains and was surprised, but she already knew strange things often happened there. Without saying much, she calmly said, "Won't you eat? Come, I'll serve you another plate." Even now, she still asks me, how did curry stains end up on the teddy's hand? The house eventually became half fear, half habit. Whenever something strange happened, at first we were scared, but after a while we got used to it. One day, while my mother and I were talking outside, we suddenly heard a loud crash from my room, like something had fallen and broken into pieces. We rushed to the door, but it was locked from the inside. No matter how hard we tried, we couldn't open it. Finally, Mom went to get the duplicate key. When we returned, to our surprise, the door was wide open. Inside, my geometry box had fallen on the floor, but the scariest part was this. Half of my pencil was stuck inside Mantu's belly, just like a knife stabbed into someone. Half of it was outside, half inside. I pulled the pencil out, and there was a small hole left in the teddy's stomach, deep enough to pierce through the cotton stuffing inside. I started crying, and my mom comforted me, then sewed up the teddy so the hole wouldn't show. Even now, I wonder, how could a pencil that fell on the floor end up stabbed into the teddy's stomach like that? A few days later, it was midday. I had just come back from school and was taking a shower. While bathing, I suddenly felt as if someone had entered my room. My two friends, Alex and Liam, who lived next door, often came over to play after school. We were so close that they didn't need to ask before coming inside. I clearly heard footsteps, toys clattering, and even whispers. I assumed it was them, so I continued my shower without worry. It didn't take more than 10 to 15 minutes, but when I came out, the room was empty. Strangely, the toys were scattered all over the floor, just as if someone had been playing with them moments ago. Even the teddy had fallen off the bed. I got annoyed. My friends had never come and left without saying anything before. I went to my mom and told her. She came to check the room and asked, "Who did this?" "Alex and Liam," I replied. At first, Mom said, "But they didn't come today." A chill ran through me instantly. Seeing my expression, she quickly changed her tone and said, "Actually, yes, they did come. I saw them. They must have left in a hurry. I'll talk to their mothers this evening about leaving the toys scattered." Later, at the park while playing, I learned the truth. Alex had gone to his grandmother's house the day before, and Liam was sick in bed with a heavy cold. So, who had I heard? Whose voices, footsteps, and whispers filled my room? And who had scattered those toys? That fear lingered with me for a long time. As I grew older, I played with the teddy less and less. Eventually, I stored it away in the storeroom and completely forgot about it. One night I was awake watching a movie when I suddenly heard a sound coming from under my bed. It was as if someone was rolling around on the wooden floor beneath me. At first I thought it was just part of the movie, but then came a faint knocking sound, like someone tapping from below. I paused the movie and listened. Silence. A few seconds later, I resumed the film. Nearly half an hour passed before a loud bang shook me. This time it wasn't just sound. The bed itself jolted, as if someone had struck it with force. My chest tightened. I froze in fear, debating whether I should check under the bed or just wait. 5 to 10 minutes passed. Then suddenly, the entire bed shook violently, as if someone had shoved it with full strength. Terrified, I screamed. Hearing my cry, my parents rushed in and turned on the lights. I jumped off the bed and clung to them, trembling as I tried to explain. My mother sat me down, handed me a glass of water, and told me to calm down. After I told them everything, my father bent down to check under the bed. What he pulled out left me completely numb. My old teddy. I stared in shock. I had put that teddy in the storeroom months ago. My mother, too, looked disturbed. I asked in a broken voice, "How did the teddy end up here? Did the maid bring it?" But the bigger question wasn't how the teddy got under my bed. It was why the bed had shaken so violently. Was the teddy moving on its own? Or was the unseen presence in the house using the teddy as a vessel for its games? Only God knows. The very next day, my mother gave the teddy away to the maid. A month and a half later, we moved out of that house. After that, no unusual events occurred for a long time. Slowly, those memories faded. Years later, I became a father myself. My son Abraham and my daughter Joseph were 7 and 5 at the time. Back then, the stories about haunted dolls hadn't spread much. One day, I went to the store to buy a doll for Joseph. Among the many dolls on the shelf, one caught my attention immediately. It looked different. The face, the glassy eyes, the clothing, everything about it seemed unique. I thought Joseph would love it. She enjoyed horror and thriller movies, so I figured it would suit her taste. Little did I know, I was bringing danger into my own home. On the way back, the first strange thing happened. I was driving late at night, and as I passed a cemetery, the car suddenly stalled. The engine died completely. It was a brand new car, yet the ignition lights flickered on and off. I checked the battery. It was fine. At that lonely hour, getting help was difficult. I was considering calling someone when my wife phoned me. I told her where I was. The moment she heard the word cemetery, she felt sick. Strangely enough, right after she said she felt unwell, the car started on its own. We laughed it off, joking that her bad vibes must have scared the car into working again. It never crossed my mind that the doll sitting on the back seat might have had anything to do with it. Once home, I gave the doll to Joseph. She was overjoyed. My wife, however, wasn't amused. She said, "Only you would buy something like this. Why did you have to bring this doll home?" I laughed it off, but later that night, she grew restless. When I asked her what was wrong, she said, "That doll you brought yesterday, I don't like it. It gives me such negative vibes. Could you throw it away?" I was surprised. Throw it away? I just gave it to her yesterday. For context, my wife has an incredibly sharp intuition. She often senses danger long before it actually happens. So I asked her, "Did you see something?" She shook her head. "No, I didn't see anything. But I can feel it. There's something wrong." Within a few days, even I began noticing something strange. The house felt darker, even with the lights on, as if the air itself was heavy. One evening, we were having dinner together when Joseph suddenly rushed back from her room, terrified. She shouted, "Mom! Dad! Come quickly!" Her face was pale with fear. My heart sank. Joseph wasn't the type of child to be frightened by imaginary things. She liked horror movies after all. Seeing her tremble like that broke me inside. I hurried to her room. The doll was sitting calmly on a chair. I asked gently, "What happened?" Joseph, trembling, said, "Dad, the doll's eyes were moving." I tried to reason with her. How could that be? Cloth dolls don't have moving eyes. Old plastic dolls sometimes open or close their eyes, but this one isn't built that way. Still, I stared at the doll for a while. It remained motionless. I told her, "Maybe you imagined it, sweetheart." But Joseph swore, "No, Dad, I swear I saw it. Its eyes moved." My daughter never lied. She wasn't one for pranks either. Just then, Abraham, who had been listening quietly, said, "Dad, give me the doll. I'll keep it." Reluctantly, I agreed. Joseph agreed. We all went to bed. The next day, when I came home from the office and sat at the dining table, I noticed Abraham was unusually quiet. I asked him what was wrong, but he avoided my questions. After asking a few more times, he finally said, "Everything's fine." He quickly finished his food. I turned on the TV while my wife was busy on her phone. Suddenly, from the laundry area, there was a massive blast, like a short circuit. At the same moment, all the lights in the house went out. I grabbed a flashlight and rushed to check. The fuse box was completely burned out, and right underneath it lay a black cat, dead. For context, my wife has an incredibly sharp intuition. She often senses danger long before it actually happens. So I asked her, "Did you see something?" She shook her head. "No, I didn't see anything. But I can feel it. There's something wrong." Within a few days, even I began noticing something strange. The house felt darker, even with the lights on, as if the air itself was heavy. One evening, we were having dinner together when Joseph suddenly rushed back from her room, terrified. She shouted, "Mom! Dad! Come quickly!" Her face was pale with fear. My heart sank. Joseph wasn't the type of child to be frightened by imaginary things. She liked horror movies after all. Seeing her tremble like that broke me inside. I hurried to her room. The doll was sitting calmly on a chair. I asked gently, "What happened?" Joseph, trembling, said, "Dad, the doll's eyes were moving." I tried to reason with her. How could that be? Cloth dolls don't have moving eyes. Old plastic dolls sometimes open or close their eyes, but this one isn't built that way. Still, I stared at the doll for a while. It remained motionless. I told her, "Maybe you imagined it, sweetheart." But Joseph swore, "No, Dad, I swear I saw it. Its eyes moved." My daughter never lied. She wasn't one for pranks either. Just then, Abraham, who had been listening quietly, said, "Dad, give me the doll. I'll keep it." Reluctantly, I agreed. Joseph agreed. We all went to bed. The next day, when I came home from the office and sat at the dining table, I noticed Abraham was unusually quiet. I asked him what was wrong, but he avoided my questions. After asking a few more times, he finally said, "Everything's fine." He quickly finished his food. I turned on the TV while my wife was busy on her phone. Suddenly, from the laundry area, there was a massive blast, like a short circuit. At the same moment, all the lights in the house went out. I grabbed a flashlight and rushed to check. The fuse box was completely burned out, and right underneath it lay a black cat, dead. I lifted my head and froze. The doll that had been on the chair a few seconds ago was now in a completely different spot. It was impossible for it to move like that on its own. I was stunned. Just then, my wife called out from outside, "Come quickly!" I rushed out and was hit by the strong smell of diesel. In the basement, I kept a few drums of diesel for our generator, for when we went camping. I ran downstairs and saw 3 drums had toppled over. Diesel had spilled all across the floor, and right next to them lay my cigarette lighter, the one I always kept locked inside a drawer. My head spun. Why were all these things happening together? I cleaned up the diesel and hurried back upstairs. Then I immediately called my grandfather. Since childhood, I'd seen people go to him whenever they faced problems with spirits or black magic. He was a knowledgeable man. I didn't tell him everything, but I said, "There's this strange heaviness at home. We feel sleepy all the time. Even when the lights are on, it feels like darkness is coming in. Some accidents almost happened, but didn't. And today this diesel incident took place. Something bad could have happened, but it didn't." Grandpa replied, "I'll call you back in an hour." Exactly an hour later, the phone rang. His first question was, "Did you bring a doll home recently?" The word doll sent a chill down my spine. How did he know? I answered, "Yes, I brought one for Joseph." Grandpa said firmly, "Get rid of it as soon as possible, but don't just throw it away. You must do exactly what I tell you, otherwise it might enter someone else's home and cause even greater harm." He then taught me what to recite, how to hold my breath and focus, and how to sincerely ask for the Creator's protection. He warned me again and again, "Don't throw it away casually. You must finish the process." I listened carefully and decided to do it that very night. I opened all the doors and windows so the smoke could escape. In the small yard next to the kitchen, I placed a metal tray filled with dry wood and paper. I put the doll on top. Silence. Stillness. My wife and children were in another room. I began reciting what Grandpa had taught me. My chest trembled, but I tried to stay steady. Then I lit the fire. As soon as the flames caught its clothes, the doll seemed to slowly turn its head towards me. My heart froze. I kept reciting, stronger and louder. By the grace of the Creator, nothing disastrous happened. When it was over, the air in the house changed. That heavy darkness disappeared. The light actually felt like light again. The children stopped fighting. The strange breakdowns of the washing machine and car came to an end. We waited a few days, and peace truly returned. That's when I realized Grandpa was right. Let me make one thing clear. I am not superstitious. I always look for logic before calling something supernatural. That's why, on the first day, when Joseph said the doll's eyes moved, I didn't believe it. How could the eyes of a cloth doll move? That was my reasoning. I even remember when my wife told me, "Take this doll outside and throw it away." I forced myself to stay strong and refused, but in the end, I couldn't escape the disaster. Anyway, that was the end of his story, and I think you've enjoyed listening to it. Now, let's move on to our next incident. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I'm doing well too. So, let's begin. My name is James, and I'm here to share this story. Back then, I used to drive a rented minibus. I'm sure most of you know what that is. People hire us for weddings, airport pickups, and different types of trips. This incident happened either at the end of 2018 or the beginning of 2019. One day, I got a trip from a village about 3 or 4 villages away from mine. The bride's home was in our village, and the groom's home was in Atlanta. It wasn't the wedding itself, it was more like the bao bat, the reception after the wedding. Now, the family who hired me told me something unusual. They said I couldn't take a helper with me. Normally, drivers have helpers on these long trips. But this time, they told me I had to drive alone. We had to leave very early in the morning. Back then, the roads weren't as good as they are now. It usually took 8 to 9 hours to reach Atlanta. So, around 4 a.m., I started the journey. By 2 or 3 p.m., I reached Atlanta. There, everyone ate, rested, chatted, and spent time together. By the time they were ready to leave, it was already around 9 p.m. So I started driving back. Everything was fine on the way, until I reached a certain spot near a station. People who travel that route often know the place. It was kind of an open area. There was a private car in front of me, and I was driving at about 60 or 70 kilometers per hour. As I was about to overtake that car, I noticed from a distance a truck parked on the left side of the road. It looked broken down, maybe with a flat tire. One wheel was on the road, the other was off, but cars could still pass through. The private car in front of me suddenly swerved to the right to avoid the truck, but since I was driving a microbus, I couldn't turn as sharply. I had no choice but to keep straight, and that's when I saw it. Something was crawling out from underneath the truck. I couldn't stop in time, and I ran over it. A loud noise echoed under my vehicle. My heart dropped. I thought maybe someone was repairing the truck from underneath, and I had just run over a person. It was midnight, around 12 or 1 a.m., and all the passengers in the back were asleep. When I slammed the brakes, everyone woke up and looked around in shock. I quickly got out of the vehicle. The bride's brother, who was riding with me, also got out, along with a few other passengers. We searched the area thoroughly, under the truck, on the roadside, even the empty land nearby. But there was nothing. No person, no animal, no trace of anything. But what I saw when it crawled out, that's what still haunts me. In the beam of my headlights, I clearly saw 2 glowing red eyes. Just the eyes.
The body looked like it was crawling, but I couldn't make out its shape. No big teeth, no hair, nothing. Just those glowing red eyes staring. The bride's brother, who also drives Uber, told me not to worry. He said strange things like this often happen on the road at night. He told me to get back in the vehicle and keep driving, so I did. But inside, I was shaken. I kept thinking, what did I just see? Was it human, an animal, or something else entirely? The journey continued. We still had about 20 kilometers left before reaching their village. I drove at around 70 to 80 kilometers per hour. Luckily, no more incidents happened on the way. By 2:30 or 3 a.m., I dropped everyone off. They paid me, even gave me a little tip. For a moment, I almost forgot about what I'd seen. At that time, I was young, maybe 19 or 20 years old. I just wanted to finish the trip, get paid, and go home. But then, the bride's brother insisted I stay at their house that night. He said, "It's too late, brother. After what happened on the road, it's not safe for you to drive home alone. Stay here tonight." The moment he said that, the memory of those red eyes flashed back in my mind. My fear returned. But I also had another trip scheduled early the next morning, so I had no choice. I had to go back, clean the vehicle, and be ready. I told him I couldn't stay, even though deep inside I was scared. He insisted again, but I politely refused. And that's where the real story begins. So after that, he insisted again that I should stay. But I couldn't. I had no choice. I had to return. I took the fare, got into my microbus, and started driving. From that village to my garage, it usually took around 30 minutes if I drove steadily. The road was paved, passing through a few villages, then a small highway where vehicles ran throughout the night, and finally another village road before reaching home. As I drove onto the bridge that crossed the river, my eyes kept going to the rearview mirror, checking the back seat again and again. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was sitting there. Then suddenly, I heard a sound from the back of the vehicle. I quickly glanced in the mirror toward the very last seat in the microbus. And there it was, the same red eyes I had seen under the truck. A demon, sitting silently in the last row. I couldn't see its face clearly. It was completely black,
featureless, almost like a void. Only the glowing red eyes stared back at me. Panic surged through me. I immediately pulled the vehicle over, jumped out, and ran. Right after the bridge, there was a small market area. I knew that place well. I ran straight toward it and found a guard there. He asked me what had happened, and I told him what I had seen inside the vehicle. When I returned to the bus, nothing was there. Everything looked normal. The guard and others said, "Brother, maybe you've been driving all night and you're just seeing things." But I knew what I had seen. Still, I didn't tell them about the earlier incident with the truck. I only mentioned what happened on the bridge. After calming down a little, I decided to continue driving. 2 villages later, I reached the small highway. Fear still gripped me, and I kept glancing back again and again. Then it happened. When I looked into the mirror, I saw the demon again. But this time, it wasn't in the last seat. It was sitting directly behind my driver's seat. Its red eyes locked onto mine. I froze. I slammed the brakes, heart racing, terrified. And then, in a deep, chilling voice, it spoke. "Where are you going? Won't you take me with you?" That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I parked the vehicle, jumped out, and ran toward a nearby house along the roadside. I remember running up the stairs to the front door. I tripped, fell hard, and hit the door with my hand before collapsing. Then everything went black. When I regained consciousness, maybe 10 or 20 minutes later, maybe longer, I found myself inside the house, surrounded by people. They asked me what had happened. I told them everything, from the moment I had left the village, to the demon in the bus, to collapsing at their doorstep. They said they had heard a loud noise outside, opened the door, and found me lying unconscious. 2 men from that house accompanied me back to the vehicle. The headlights were still on, the engine running, as if nothing had happened. I asked them to come with me further, at least until the next market area. We drove together, reached the market, and sat at a tea stall where some policemen were on duty. I stayed there for a while to calm myself. Later, I called my boss and told him everything. I said, "Brother, I can't take another trip tonight. Something terrible happened." I canceled that trip. For about 6 months after that, nothing unusual happened to me. But then, one night, while returning from the airport with passengers, it all came back. I was crossing a bridge. People called it the 15-number bridge. Around midnight, as I drove at about 50 or 60 kilometers per hour, the same demon suddenly appeared right in front of my vehicle. I hit the brakes hard. The bus swerved and crashed. That accident kept me away from driving for almost a year. Eventually, I stopped working as a driver altogether. I took a job at a hotel instead. But even there, darker and more tragic incidents began happening to me. That is a story for another day. I am currently serving as a police inspector in the American police force. Anyway, without stretching the introduction, let me get straight to the story. This incident happened to one of my senior constables, Brother Robert. It goes back 7 years. On a foggy, cold winter morning, Constable Robert was transporting a body to the morgue, just as he did on many other days. Whenever a body needed to be taken to the morgue, Robert was the one everyone called. He had years of experience. Others would avoid this duty, but Robert always considered it a responsibility and carried it out with courage. That morning, the van driver, David, was driving quietly through the empty winter roads. Suddenly, the corpse inside the van moved. At first, Robert brushed it off and didn't take it seriously. But when it happened again, he realized something was wrong. When he touched the body to check, the corpse gently moved his hand away. In all his years of experience, Robert had never seen anything like this before. Since the body showed no visible injuries, it hadn't been tied with ropes or mats, only covered with a sheet. Terrified, Robert tried to call out to the van driver, but no sound came from his throat. The van driver, David, also had long experience in transporting bodies. He was often called from neighboring police stations as well, especially when it involved digging up graves or handling decomposed corpses. But he always demanded a little extra money, claiming the rising cost of his addictions as the reason. If the deceased had family members, he would collect money from them. If not, the investigating officer had to pay. That day, the body had been found in an open field, hidden among tall grass. Since it was winter, the corpse wasn't decomposed, but it was clear it had been lying there for 2 or 3 days. The investigating officer had completed the inquest report the previous evening and kept the body at the station overnight. Now, with the paperwork ready, Robert and David were on their way to the district morgue, about 40 kilometers away. Robert sat silently, his throat heavy, as if carrying the weight of a mountain. The corpse's eyes were wide open, staring directly at him without blinking. On the rough, uneven road, every bump shifted the body from its place, and Robert kept pulling it back. In his 30 years of service, Robert had spent most of his time on corpse duty. Never once had he felt fear, but that day, an unexplainable terror took hold of him. Suddenly, the body grabbed Robert's hand as if trying to rise. A cold chill froze his entire body. With all his strength, Robert pushed the corpse back down against the van. Hatred and vengeance burned in the corpse's eyes as it stared into Robert's soul. The corpse seemed to want to say something, but Robert's jaws locked tight. His hands and feet were stiff with fear. Just then, the driver called out, "Robert, wake up! We've reached the morgue." Startled, Robert looked up and saw the morgue gates. But when his eyes fell on the body, it was still staring at him, unblinking. He couldn't tell whether what he had just experienced was a dream or reality. But when he looked at his own hand, he saw clear marks, 4 distinct finger impressions. The grip had been real. That meant everything he had witnessed was true. Robert never shared this story with anyone. Slowly, he forced himself to forget. But a few months ago, during a discussion about paranormal events, he told me everything. This was the incident, and I assure you, it is 100% true. If you liked it, feel free to read it aloud to others. Now, let us move on to our next story. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. Before I move on to another terrifying story, let me first remind you, if you still haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so now, and don't forget to click the bell icon. Now, let's continue with our next story. First, let me describe our house. Our home was located in a completely isolated place. To the north, for almost 1,000 feet, there were no houses at all. To the west, the nearest home was about half a kilometer away. Our house was built like a square, with rooms surrounding a courtyard in the middle. Even in the south, there was another courtyard. Roads also passed around it, so the whole house looked like a quadrangle. In his 30 years of service, Robert had spent most of his time on corpse duty. Never once had he felt fear. But that day, an unexplainable terror took hold of him. Suddenly, the body grabbed Robert's hand as if trying to rise. A cold chill froze his entire body. With all his strength, Robert pushed the corpse back down against the van. Hatred and vengeance burned in the corpse's eyes as it stared into Robert's soul. The corpse seemed to want to say something, but Robert's jaws locked tight. His hands and feet were stiff with fear. Just then, the driver called out, "Robert, wake up! We've reached the morgue." Startled, Robert looked up and saw the morgue gates. But when his eyes fell on the body, it was still staring at him, unblinking. He couldn't tell whether what he had just experienced was a dream or reality. But when he looked at his own hand, he saw clear marks, 4 distinct finger impressions. The grip had been real. That meant everything he had witnessed was true. Robert never shared this story with anyone. Slowly, he forced himself to forget. But a few months ago, during a discussion about paranormal events, he told me everything. This was the incident, and I assure you, it is 100% true. If you liked it, feel free to read it aloud to others. Now, let us move on to our next story. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. Before I move on to another terrifying story, let me first remind you, if you still haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so now, and don't forget to click the bell icon. Now, let's continue with our next story. First, let me describe our house. Our home was located in a completely isolated place. To the north, for almost 1,000 feet, there were no houses at all. To the west, the nearest home was about half a kilometer away. Our house was built like a square, with rooms surrounding a courtyard in the middle. Even in the south, there was another courtyard. Roads also passed around it, so the whole house looked like a quadrangle. So I stretched out my hand toward the eyes, and then thud! My hand hit the soot-covered pot. I realized the sound came from my fingers striking the pot. When I looked down, my hand was smudged black with soot. I ran out and told my mother what had happened. She said, "You just got scared." But I said, "No, I wasn't scared." Still, the proof was clear. The black soot marks were all over my fingers. That was the second incident. Now for the third one. This happened about a month or two later. My father usually stayed outside the village, but every Saturday he would come home. At that time, I was preparing for my school exams. That Saturday night, my father set the alarm clock for 3:30 a.m., telling me to wake up early because morning study helps with memory. When the alarm went off, I got up a little late, around 3:45 a.m., and sat down at my study table after adjusting the lantern for more light. In the corner of the room stood a brand new broom, leaning against the wall. Suddenly, thud, 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 the broom fell to the ground. Before I could react, the broom stood itself back up, about a foot away from where it had fallen. My whole body froze in fear. How was that possible? A broom falling and then standing upright again on its own? I screamed for my mother. She rushed in and I told her what had happened. I said, "This can't be possible, but I saw it with my own eyes." That was the third incident. Now let's move on to the third incident. This happened toward the end of 2004. One afternoon, I was riding my bicycle to the market. On the way, I met an older brother from our area with whom I had a good relationship because of his job. He used to work in Dhaka. He asked me, "Where are you going?" I said, "To the market." He said, "I'll come too." We reached the market, had some tea, and smoked. At that time, in our village market, they used to show movies on VCD players. After 10 p.m., they would even show blue films, charging 2 to 5 takas per ticket. The elderly men of the village and curious young guys often crowded there at night. So I stretched out my hand toward the eyes, and then thud! My hand hit the soot-covered pot. I realized the sound came from my fingers striking the pot. When I looked down, my hand was smudged black with soot. I ran out and told my mother what had happened. She said, "You just got scared." But I said, "No, I wasn't scared." Still, the proof was clear. The black soot marks were all over my fingers. That was the second incident. Now for the third one. This happened about a month or two later. My father usually stayed outside the village, but every Saturday he would come home. At that time, I was preparing for my school exams. That Saturday night, my father set the alarm clock for 3:30 a.m., telling me to wake up early because morning study helps with memory. When the alarm went off, I got up a little late, around 3:45 a.m., and sat down at my study table after adjusting the lantern for more light. In the corner of the room stood a brand new broom, leaning against the wall. Suddenly, thud, 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 the broom fell to the ground. Before I could react, the broom stood itself back up, about a foot away from where it had fallen. My whole body froze in fear. How was that possible? A broom falling and then standing upright again on its own? I screamed for my mother. She rushed in and I told her what had happened. I said, "This can't be possible, but I saw it with my own eyes." That was the third incident. Now let's move on to the third incident. This happened toward the end of 2004. One afternoon, I was riding my bicycle to the market. On the way, I met an older brother from our area with whom I had a good relationship because of his job. He used to work in Dhaka. He asked me, "Where are you going?" I said, "To the market." He said, "I'll come too." We reached the market, had some tea, and smoked. At that time, in our village market, they used to show movies on VCD players. After 10 p.m., they would even show blue films, charging 2 to 5 takas per ticket. The elderly men of the village and curious young guys often crowded there at night.
As I gave way to one of the buffalo carts, I decided to take the shortcut through my friend Michael's area instead of the main road. On the way, I noticed a tall stalk of bougainvillea suddenly breaking and falling to the ground. I thought, strange, but maybe it broke when the cart passed by. I reached the usual hangout spot where Michael and my friends gathered, but no one was there. I figured they must have gone to the market, so I went to Michael's house and asked his mother, "Auntie, where are they?" She said, "They were here just a while ago. Maybe they went somewhere else." As I was leaving, I suddenly heard the sound of 10 to 12 people talking and laughing loudly inside Michael's house. I thought, so they're all back, good. But as I walked closer, the voices started fading, drifting farther and farther away. Confused, I stepped into the yard. To my shock, the place was completely empty. No light, no sound, no one at all. Still rattled, I decided to head home. On the way, near a row of young jackfruit trees, one of the trees shook violently. Terrified, I froze in place. To calm myself, I thought, it's just a tree. I grabbed a branch and shook it myself, cursing aloud to cover my fear. Then I quickly left the spot. That was the second strange event. Now the next one. This was around 2007. My middle brother, who lived in Dhaka, suddenly fell seriously ill with hepatitis B, what villagers simply called jaundice. His condition was severe, with bilirubin levels around 15 or 17. The doctor strictly ordered him to take complete rest, without moving hands, feet, or even fingers. One night, around 1 or 1:30 a.m., I was asleep when he suddenly woke me, whispering, "Get up, horses are running outside." I listened carefully, and yes, I could clearly hear the sound of horses galloping around the yard. But that made no sense at all. In our area, there had never been horses. Not then, not now. No horse carts, nothing. The nearest villages with horses were at least 10 kilometers away, yet the sound was real. My brother said, "Let's catch the horse." I told him, "Are you crazy? The doctor told you not to move. How can you chase a horse?" My elder brother then suggested, "Fine. You go from the back door, and I'll go from the front. We'll trap it in the courtyard." Scared, I hesitated, but finally agreed. I stepped out through the back door while he went out the front. As soon as we entered the courtyard, the horse's galloping sounds stopped instantly. We looked around. Nothing. Absolute silence. We went back inside. Just a few minutes later, the sound started again, the thunder of hooves circling the courtyard, before fading away into the distance. That was the third terrifying incident. So far, I've shared these events with you, but there are still more stories, especially about the black magic that involved my mother. I'll share those with you gradually, one by one. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. I'm doing fine too. Today, I've brought another real story for you, so let's not waste any time and get started. My name is John, and this incident happened to my cousin brother, cousin sister, and my uncle. My grandfather had 7 sons and 2 daughters. My mother is the eldest, and my youngest aunt got married in the neighboring sub-district. My uncle, her husband, was a hafiz, a person who memorized the Quran. He was a teacher at a local madrasa. As a person, he was very humble and kind. He was tall, well-built, with a beard. Overall, a man with a strong and respectable personality. My aunt and uncle had 1 son and 1 daughter. Their daughter's name was Mary, and their son's name was James. Everything was going well until 5 years ago, when a terrible tragedy struck their lives. My aunt's in-laws' house was near a marshland, so the family often went fishing. One day, after returning from the madrasa, my uncle asked my aunt to prepare some palm cakes. He told her that after fishing, they would come back and enjoy the cakes together. He then took Mary and James with him, carrying a fishing net, and left for the river. But that evening turned into night, and still they hadn't returned. My aunt became worried. She called all her relatives to check if they were visiting anyone, but no one had seen them. Then, all the relatives started searching. The news even reached our house, and my father joined the search. At dawn, before the sun rose, my father came back home.
His face looked heavy, almost broken. My mother asked him what had happened. Did you find them? My father suddenly broke down crying and said, yes, we found them, but they're no longer alive. We were all shocked. How could that be? My father explained that my uncle and James's bodies were found in a canal that connected to a large river. James was holding tightly onto his father when they were found. Mary's body, however, was discovered much farther away, under a bridge known as the 10-number bridge. Her body was caught in the fishing net. But what terrified everyone was the condition of their bodies. Parts of my uncle's face and body were eaten away. Mary's face was badly disfigured, as if something had chewed it off. Strangely, though, James's body was completely untouched. To this day, their deaths remain a mystery. People who live near rivers and marshes know how to swim, so how could all three drown at once? And why were two bodies found together while the daughter's body floated so far away? And the most horrifying part, their bodies looked like they were attacked, eaten in parts. The next morning, their bodies were buried in the village graveyard. My aunt was devastated and remained silent for a long time. Even now, whenever she sees palm cakes, she bursts into tears, remembering that day. Please pray for my aunt, so that she can overcome her grief. This was a heartbreaking incident, and I hope you felt the emotions behind it. Now, let's move on to another story. Now, let me share with you another strange incident. This one also happened in my grandfather's village, in the Barashal division of Bangladesh, Patuakhali district, Baufal sub-district, in one of the local villages. My grandfather's house was only about 5 minutes away from the place where this event occurred. If you walk out of my grandfather's house, you'd first reach a main road. From there, after walking a little further, you'd turn left onto a dirt path. On the right-hand side, there was a pond. That pond had its own mysterious story, which I might share another time. If you continued walking past the pond, you'd reach a cluster of houses, a large courtyard shared by several families. Beyond that stood more houses, and behind them, a mosque where the villagers prayed. Behind that mosque, in another cluster of homes, was a graveyard, and it was near that graveyard that something terrifying happened. One day, we noticed a huge snake slithering toward one of the graves. It was so big that we could only see the tail as it disappeared inside. None of us dared to go near. People in the village began whispering about it. Days passed, and the sightings continued. Eventually, someone called for a snake charmer to deal with it. The snake charmer arrived with his helper. The villagers explained, "There's a massive snake inside that grave. We've seen it many times, but no one has been able to catch it. We fear it might harm someone." The snake charmer agreed to try. He took out a glass of water and began performing rituals. From his bag, he pulled out 2 large brass balls, about the size of cricket balls. He told us, "These are not ordinary tools. If there's truly a snake inside, these will force it to appear." He placed the brass balls on the ground and recited incantations. To our shock, the balls began to move, slowly rolling on their own, as if pulled by some invisible force. The villagers gasped. We followed as the balls rolled toward the grave. Suddenly, with a loud crack, like an explosion, the ground began to shake. And then we saw it. From inside the grave emerged not an ordinary snake, but something beyond imagination. Its body was thick, like that of a grown man. From the waist down, it was a snake, but from the waist up, it resembled a terrifying, half-human, half-reptile creature. We were paralyzed with fear. The snake charmer himself stepped back, trembling. He whispered to us, "This is not a snake. This is a jinn." The creature hissed and glared at us. The snake charmer quickly muttered prayers and begged the entity for forgiveness, pleading not to be harmed. Slowly, the creature sank back into the grave and disappeared into the earth. Afterward, the snake charmer explained, "What you saw was not a normal being. It is an ancient guardian jinn, centuries old. It protects this place, your homes, and your ancestors' land. It will not harm you unless disturbed, but no snake charmer should ever attempt to capture it again. Doing so could bring disaster." From that day, The entire village knew the truth. That graveyard was not just an ordinary resting place. It was guarded by a supernatural being. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I'm doing great too. Without wasting any time, let's dive into a new story. The story I'm going to tell you today comes from a village. It's quite old, but 100% true. I heard it from my grandfather, and I'm going to tell it exactly the way he told me. This happened about 40 years ago. There's a village near our area called Mistrapara. Parts of that village were once filled with dense forests, though most of them are gone now. The story begins with one of those jungles. That day, I was at home when I suddenly heard that someone in Mistrapara had died. Out of curiosity, I asked my grandmother how he died. She started telling the real story. The man who died wasn't from that village. He had come to visit his daughter. From his own village, it takes about 3 hours to reach his daughter's house. So, he hired a van and left around noon. Now let me tell you, there was only one road into our village,
And it went right through that forest.
The jungle road was about 2 kilometers long. After that, you'd reach the village. While on the way, the van driver suddenly said, "This forest has bad vibes. I'm not going any further." The man had no other option, so he got off and started walking. He figured the driver was just superstitious about ghosts or something. As he walked, he realized it was getting close to Maghrib prayer time. The call to prayer was about to start. He thought, if I take the regular path, I'll miss my prayer. Maybe I should take a shortcut. He spotted a narrow path cutting through the forest, leading straight to a bigger road. So he turned on his torch and started walking down it. Let me explain. The forest was so dense that sunlight barely reached the ground during the day. As he walked deeper, someone suddenly called his name. He thought maybe it was someone he knew. The voice sounded familiar, but when he turned around, no one was there. Now a bit scared, he kept walking. Then the same voice, this time rougher and more aggressive, said, "Hey, where do you think you're going?" Now seriously frightened, he turned again. Still, no one there. Just as he turned to continue walking, he suddenly saw a man in front of him, dressed in a white robe, jubba, with a long beard. The sight of him was so terrifying that he nearly passed out. The man, a religious-looking figure, said, "Didn't I tell you to stop? You didn't listen. Now you must face the consequences." Terrified, the man asked, "What consequences?" The figure said, "Come with me. A burial needs to be done. We're one man short. You will help." Suddenly, 4 more men, all dressed similarly, appeared, carrying a body wrapped in a white shroud on a stretcher. The bearded man said, "Come on." With no choice, the man followed them. They walked until they reached a very dark and isolated part of the jungle. There he saw a freshly dug grave, lit up eerily by lights all around. The bearded man told him, "Get inside the grave." Shaking with fear, he climbed down. They lowered the body into the grave beside him. As the body was laid down, a sudden gust of wind blew away the cloth covering its face. What he saw froze him in horror. The face was his own. He couldn't believe it. He was looking at himself, dead in a grave. He fainted from fear. Just then, the call to Isha prayer began in the distance. The bearded man said one final thing before disappearing. "Don't ever tell anyone what happened here. If you do, you will die the very day you speak of it." When he woke up, he was standing at the main road, completely confused and shaken. What just happened? Was it a dream, a hallucination, or was it real? He ran straight to his daughter's house and collapsed unconscious at the door. He remained unconscious for 3 days. When he finally woke up, he found himself lying in bed at his daughter's house. He told the whole story to the people there, despite the warning. And just like that, He died that very night at midnight. After that, for several years, no one dared to go through that forest. Even those who had to cross it avoided going too deep inside. Years later, my grandfather himself decided to explore that jungle. But that part of the story he said he would tell us another time. So we waited for that tale. But for now, this was the first incident. A truly chilling and mysterious event. I hope you found it interesting. We'll return soon with our next story. Hello everyone. I am Mohammed Shihab Islam, speaking from Kutia, Rajshahi. Today, I'm going to share with you a chilling story. This story was told to me by one of my elder brothers, and it took place in a village under Durgapur Upazila. For certain reasons, I won't be revealing the exact name of the place. Let's get straight into the story. There once lived a very influential man in that village. His family owned a lot of land and wealth. He had 6 brothers, making them 7 in total. One day, the brothers decided to dig a large pond on their land. After digging for a while, nearly 50 to 60 laborers came across a huge banyan tree. The men cut off its branches and paused work for the day. That night, one of the brothers had a dream. In the dream, a mysterious, unseen voice warned him, "Do not cut down this tree. Do not dig this pond. If you continue, you will face great harm. You will all die." The next morning, he shared his dream with 3 of his brothers. They brushed it off as nonsense and left for the city. But later that night, 3 other brothers, Kudrat, Abbas, and Sadiq, had the exact same dream. In the morning, they told the others, but Shariat, Mofizul, and Shahidul didn't believe them. Shariat, the eldest brother, was around 38 years old and the most stubborn of them all. Despite the warnings, they hired laborers and went ahead with cutting down the banyan tree. The next morning, Kudrat, Abbas, and Sadiq went missing. Villagers searched everywhere until, at the base of the banyan tree, they discovered their mutilated bodies. One of them was even found without his heart. Panic spread across the village. Rumors soon followed that a headless spirit lived near that tree. Not far from the tree stood a pond, and beside the pond was a small hut where 2 guards used to stay at night. The area was eerie. The nana trees around the pond blocked the view. Cold winter fog covered everything. Insects chirped, and the wind howled faintly through the trees. One night, around 3:30 a.m., one of the guards lying on a wooden cot suddenly woke up. He smelled blood, thick, metallic, like the smell of sacrifice during Eid. When he opened his eyes, he froze. Standing before him was a horrifying figure, headless, blood dripping from its neck. The guard heard a voice, though no mouth spoke. "Don't be afraid. I won't harm you. It's too cold outside, so I came here to rest." But how could anyone remain calm? Terrified, the guard screamed, waking his companion. The other guard bolted out of the hut in fear. Suddenly, a long, black, hairy arm stretched from the figure and pierced straight into the chest of the fleeing man. With sharp claws, it tore out his heart and shoved it down its bloody neck. The surviving guard fainted. When villagers found him, he recounted the nightmare he had witnessed. But he never recovered. He soon developed a high fever, coughed blood, and within 15 days, he died. Years passed, but more horrors followed. Near that same banyan tree, beside another pond and a palm tree, was a small dark swamp. Among the brothers, Mofizul was a fishing addict. One afternoon, he went there to fish. Hours passed without a single catch. Suddenly, just before evening, a strange little boy appeared near him. With a weak, eerie voice, the boy said, "Give me some fish. I haven't eaten in a long time. Please, give me some fish." Annoyed, Mofizul shouted, "Go away! Where did you come from? I worked hard to catch these fish. Why should I give you any?" The boy begged again, "Just a few, please." But Mofizul refused. The boy's face twisted into anger as he hissed, "You'll regret this. You will suffer the consequences." That night, Mofizul returned home. At first, he seemed fine, but within days his behavior changed. He became obsessed with fish. eating all the cooked fish in the house by himself, even raw fish. His family grew worried. They took him to a religious healer who told them he made a grave mistake. If he had only given a few fish, nothing would have happened. But now no one can save him, except Allah. Not long after, Mofizul disappeared. Villagers searched everywhere until they finally found him in the swamp. His body was horribly disfigured. A massive hole was ripped open in his stomach, his organs eaten away. His eyes were missing. Horrified, the villagers left his corpse in the water. To this day, people in that area claim to see a headless figure wandering near the old banyan tree, and sometimes a strange child by the swamp. And that, my friends, is the story. For now, I must say goodbye, but I'll return again with another terrifying tale. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay with Legend Story USA. If there are mistakes in this narration, please forgive me.